Look, I did want to correct John on one point. He said, well, it'll be clear that he said something about it's not very easy to overestimate my impact on the Australian economy. It actually is quite easy to overestimate my impact on the Australian economy. So I think I got to know John when I was chairing a thing that Lindsay Tanner set up called the Government 2.0 Task Force. How many people here have heard of that? Great. Do you know that was translated into Korean? I arrived in Korea and they handed me a translation. I'm very proud of that, more than having this immense impact on the Australian economy that you heard. A government report translated into a foreign language. It was in English to start with, which most government reports, as you know, are not. So, no, that doesn't work. So, it's on? It's not on. Okay. So now you see it, now you don't. Now you hear it, now you don't. So, so we got to know each other at around about 2009. Now, John has already taken you through some of what 2009 felt like, or at least what 2005 felt like. All kinds of incredibly exciting things were happening. Wikipedia was charging around. Social media, Obama, everybody told us that that was the beginning of something wonderful. 2011, the Arab Spring. I was one of the few people, I won't say that I predicted that the Arab Spring wouldn't work out, I didn't know. But I was one of the few people who watched the Arab Spring and thought, okay, so we've torn down what does exist. Is this going to work? Why would we expect this to end up better than what it is? So that's what we've been learning ever since, as we've watched one thing after another go wrong. I've tried to think about those things, and I'm near to finishing a series of now 18 short videos, and in one elevator pitch for these videos is that they give you a book-sized treatment of ideas in 18 bite-sized explainer videos, which will hopefully have more cut-through, a larger audience than a non-fiction book. So I want to show you the first of those videos, and then I'll make a few extra additional comments. So that is the first video. Let's go.
Are we humans good or bad, angels or devils? I don't know about you, but for me, the answer is both. I also know that our institutions and their leaders shape how much of the devil gets into us. So how come so many bad guys get to the top in our institutions? We set it up that way. The modern world was built around institutions that presume we're self-interested. Then they align our self-interest with our duties. Workers meet KPIs to keep them on task, bosses get stock options to align their interests with shareholders, and politicians pursue our interests to win our votes. How's that going then? Those at the top often got there by gaming the system, not by doing a great job. So, politicians kowtow to power, bureaucrats running business and government organisations build their careers, not their service. Executives target share price and bonuses, not long-term value. And academics chase publications and funding, not intellectual progress. Here's someone who wanted to change all that. Elinor Ostrom, the first woman Nobel laureate in economics.
Instead of assuming that people are entirely self-interested, let's design institutions that bring out our best.
So what institutions do bring out our best? I start that task in these videos. Our institutions help us work together by entangling us in webs of mutual obligation. They orchestrate our superpower, our deep desire to do our bit so others do the same for us. When they work well, we work miracles, and we feel like $1 million. They awaken what Abraham Lincoln sublimely called the better angels of our nature. I called this series The Shared Centre to acknowledge the role of institutions as the shared centre of our civilisation. They scaffold our lives together as we go about our own business. But they're increasingly perverted for private gain. So here's just one example of an institution that could heal our politics by nurturing rather than exploiting our nature. But I'll show you more soon. Meet Ireland's Finbar O'Brien. Abused by a priest when young, he'd become a heavy drinker, a loner, and deeply resentful. He associated gay people with his abuser. Gay people like 26-year-old fellow Irishman Chris Lyons. Chris also felt left out and let down by life. Finbar and Chris had a date in destiny. They both won the lottery, but they didn't even enter it. It was a lottery to choose 99 ordinary people to represent their fellow citizens to help decide a vexed issue. Should Ireland have same-sex marriage? As Chris introduced himself, Finbar wanted to punch him. Then Chris said, I feel so insecure. I hardly know what to say. I'll probably leave soon. Finbar blurted out, "Thank you, that's how I feel." Encouraged, Chris went on. With different views on the issue at hand, they'd connected on a different, more fundamental level. The Assembly helped Ireland's political system solve a vexed and divisive issue. How different things would be today if it had been politics as usual, with activists on the street and social media revving us up and stoking our resentments, so we're more and more convinced of the bad faith of those who disagree with us, convinced that problems are battles that are solved when one side wins and the other loses. And all the big players in our politics and mainstream and social media all benefit by orchestrating the battles and encouraging us to join the spiral of resentment, self-righteousness, and misunderstanding. We don't need geniuses to see how bad things are getting, but we don't need saints or heroes to set it right. We need better institutions. Chris and Finbar's small miracle occurred when citizens met together, solving common problems, not fighting battles or playing to the gallery. It brought out the better angels of their nature. Institutions like these can help us rebuild a world that's fit for human habitation. Our DNA will do the rest. We're still that fragile, hairless ape that survived on the African savannah and the Arctic by solving problems in groups. We'll start from there in our next video. And Chris and Finbar? They attended the Citizen Assembly feeling isolated. Today, I'm pleased to say, they each have a new friend.
Am I on? No, I'm not. Here I am. So that's the first video I'm pleased. I think you liked it, so thank you for that. Now, just a few comments about what is intimated there, and you'll see either 2 or 3 more of those videos over the day. You could say that I have a plan, and it's tied up in the ideas of citizen juries that you heard there. But I think it's, as I've thought about this, this actually first occurred to me when we had that confluence of Pauline Hanson in 1996 who turned up, and the Republican debate. And I kept thinking to myself, we're having the wrong debate, because Australia is effectively a republic with a little Monty Python show from another country as the entertainment. It's not a terrible arrangement. It might not be to our taste, but either having an elected president, which would create its own problems, or replicating this system in Australia with a very serious person at the top with no power, didn't look to me like addressing anything other than a symbolic problem. And the other thing is that I have quite a bit of sympathy, not particularly for Pauline Hanson, but for people who vote for Pauline Hanson. People of low education, people like Chris and or at least Finbar, and arguably Chris if he wasn't gay. And it was then that I thought about citizen juries and things like that. And the reason I say don't think of this as the plan is that the more, that's a long time ago, and the more I've thought about these things, the deeper and simpler they have got for me. And I now think that there are, in fact, in democracies, well, all democracies that I know about are 3-legged stools. There are 3 forms of democracy within, or 3 institutions those democracies use: direct democracy, which the Athenians had in the assembly and we have with our vote, and 2 forms of representation. Representation by election, which we have doubled down on and is at the heart of our political system, and representation by sampling, which we use in juries in courts. And the thing about those things is that they are just so fundamentally different, we have got no idea. So just to give you a few very simple characterizations, an election is inherently competitive, and an election is inherently hierarchical. It is to separate out, by definition, the governors from the governed, and to give the governed a consolation prize that they got to vote every now and again. And representation by sampling, everything is different about it. It happens to, as our trust in institutions heads southward, has done for the last, since John F. Kennedy, or since Watergate really, that's the 70s for the people in the front seats. Maybe they're the back seats. Our faith in juries, which is our faith in ourselves, given enough time to think and to talk, remains strong. The theatre of these 2 ways of doing things is completely different. One is scalable via all those TV screens and so on. One is feedstock into media, into clicks. The other is far less so. Representation by sampling reproduces something that Aristotle regarded as quintessentially democratic. Aristotle would describe our system as aristocratic or oligarchic, depending on whether it's going well or badly. And that was why the American founding fathers chose it. because they were thinking about this from 1776 to 1789, and democracy was a dirty word back then. You will find that the American founding fathers spent their time thinking about Rome, not Athens. Athens was a dirty word too. Athens was a democracy. Rome was an oligarchic, or if you like, aristocratic republic. That's how they wanted to set it up. And so Aristotle said that elections that elections were aristocratic or oligarchic institutions, and representation by sampling, by lotteries, by sortition, they're all the same thing, they were democratic. And he had a beautiful way to describe what democracy is. Democracy is when everyone takes turns in governing and being governed. So that's how profound this is. And what I like about it is that the problem maps onto a solution. I didn't start thinking about this. I wouldn't have started thinking about this because I wanted to think about all our problems. Naturally, we all think about our problems, but I get excited when I start seeing hard problems connected with clues about what the answers are. And I think this is an incredibly profound thing that we are in the grip of, and I think there are real possibilities to change things by changing the way we think. I've left some things out of this discussion, which is only fair. I've only had 10 minutes or less, but I want to take those things up in the next session, and if I've got any time, I'm happy to, which I think I do, John, I can take some questions. No, John's given me the wind up. I'm sorry, I obviously didn't do very well, but I'll see you soon.